This presentation is brought to you by Bruno, Jayon, Isabella, Duncan, and myself, Hunter. This presentation is in the Pecha Kucha style and will focus on the environment. And each member will present their individual subtopic: global warming, deforestation, wildfires, oceanic pollution, and sustainable development.
When we look at some of the specifics, some might see the fight against climate change as necessary, but to others it might be detrimental to corporations. Deforestation to some is a blatant evil, but it might be an economic staple to others. And wildfire management can be effective and worthwhile strategy to some, but to others it might only be an afterthought.
Some might consider our oceans as utterly crucial and that they should be protected at all cost, or maybe it's fine as it is. Some argue that sustainable development is truly attainable and worth those hurdles, but others think that the world should just continue to move forward the way it has and assume that things will work out. These are all things we need to consider clearly, but a stance must be taken.
Our group has chosen to take the pro-environmental stance. Despite all the hurdles that might present themselves when choosing to go the environmental route, our group has come to the consensus that overcoming those challenges is critical. And we understand that there may be contrasting arguments, but we've gathered undeniable evidence through research that states that we must protect the environment, and that must be our priority.
It is essential to properly understand the severity, causes, and consequences of global climate change and how to appropriately approach fixing it. Current and future damage to the environment should be taken seriously and not ignored or downplayed any further to prevent more devastation and to provide opportunities to fix the problem before it's too late.
Greenhouse gases and non-renewable energy have led to an increase in global temperatures. Thomas Stoker led a study where he and a team of researchers drilled into Atlantic ice caps and pulled out ice from 3 kilometers deep. They were able to analyze the air trapped from 650,000 years ago and found that there is more CO2 in the atmosphere now than ever before. Coal, petroleum, and oil are some of the most common fossil fuels used in America, all of which release large amounts of carbon dioxide and all of which are used by big corporations. But when pressed to switch to more renewable energies, nothing happens, and companies that profit off of these fossil fuels make no effort to change because it keeps making them money. To change would upset their profit.
Another crucial aspect to the environment that we must protect at all costs is our forests, as we've allowed deforestation to ravage our planet's ecosystems for far too long. And it's time to take a stand. Entire forests and all of their biodiversity have been wiped clean off the face of the earth, and that only continues to plummet us further into global destruction. Take, for example, the rainforests in South America, notably the Amazon. While some may argue that this sort of destruction is necessary for these economies, that's simply not true, and it's anything but sustainable. We can't sit around and let these entire forests disappear, especially when these nations could be enacting more preservation methods and altering their industries and dependencies.
Wildfires play a key role into shaping ecosystems, such as serving as an agent of renewal and change. But uncontrollable fires can be deadly, destroying homes, wildlife habitat, and timber, and polluting the air with emissions harmful to human health. We can minimize this by doing things like building campfires in an open location, keep vehicles off dry grass, and regularly maintaining your equipment and vehicle. Studies show that nearly 85% of wildland fires in the United States are caused by humans. These fires result from campfires left unattended, the burning of debris, discarded cigarettes, and intentional acts of arson. Lasting effects of wildfires for humans would include serious medical conditions such as bronchitis and heart failure, and for the ecosystem itself would be the loss of wildlife in such area.
Oceanic pollution is one of the biggest environmental problems today. Plastics that litter the surface, oil rigs, and fishing boats all combine to cause dramatic damage to ocean life and water quality. Ocean life is affected by microplastics, which have been found ingested by over 114 species. Water quality is affected by oil rig spills and foreign materials. Smaller debris called microplastics affect even more since they can be ingested by zooplankton and other much smaller organisms. Another less frequent but significantly more catastrophic form of pollution is oil spills, the most infamous being the Exxon Valdez oil spill originating in Alaska and spreading 11 million gallons of crude oil down the west coast. This spill eventually led to 1,300 miles of ocean being polluted.
Sustainable development aims to better the relationship between humanity and the environment by critically investigating the way our resources are used and produced, and aims to fix them using technology and other solutions. While slightly disruptive, for example, decreasing the amount of personal transportation as opposed to walking or public transportation, Sustainable development is absolutely necessary to stop the damaging behavior towards our environment.
We should want to protect the environment because it's the only world we have. If we don't take care of the earth, then no one else will. And we leave it worse off for younger generations, and they have to deal with the problems that we left behind. Like we have to deal with the problems that other generations left behind for us. And it's not just our world either. We share with animals who are essentially innocent. We hurt all life when we pollute the earth.
The devastating effects of not protecting the environment are already being felt throughout our planet, and we can visualize those effects, but there's still so much destruction that can ensue. Novels such as The Road by Cormac McCarthy, for example, showcase the perils of a world turned into a barren wasteland, a reality that could surely ensue if we ignore our environment.
There needs to be an overhaul in the economy, driven production of pollution, and countries with economies that are dependent on deforestation for people's livelihoods must change. There has to be greater incentives for other industries, and you might be able to make an impact in this scene by, for example, petitioning the government for change.
With technology rapidly advancing, we are now able to present alternatives for energy consumption. Some of the newer ways would be switching to an electric car, using solar panels to power up homes and other buildings, wind turbines, which are useful for grinding grain and pumping water, and hydropower, which can be used for farming and turning paddle wheels.
Global warming and the problems that derive from and contribute to it can and should be stopped. There's no real argument against these problems, and solutions should be approached both systemically and individually, aside from how we feel about the seriousness of the destruction of our environment.